Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to start my mid-month book bash vlog. So it is February the 10th, and this is mid-month book bash weekend. It is the end of the afternoon on Friday, and I am up at our camp at the lake, and we're going to spend tonight and tomorrow night up here, and then go home for the annual Super Bowl party. So that will be fun. But I just wanted to briefly check in and talk about the books I'll be working on this weekend. The first of which is my audiobook, Desperation and Death by Robb. This is book maybe 54 in the Eve Dallas futuristic mystery series. Basically police procedurals is what they are. This is an excellent audiobook, and I only have a couple more hours left, so I'm pretty sure I'll be finishing this one this weekend. And then a buddy read that I'm working on is A Mercy by Toni Morrison. This is a buddy read for Black History Month with Patrice Jones and Karen from Run Right Reads and Doris from Aldi Books. So I'm only about 70 pages into this one, so I'll be working on this one because I need to catch up and check in on the next two sections of this one. Another buddy read I'm working on is this one. I don't have the dust jacket. This is White Trash by Nancy Isenberg. This is nonfiction, history nonfiction that I'm buddy reading with another wonderful commenter and friend from BookTube, Rachel, had Nancy in my mind because Nancy's the author's name. We've just checked in on the first part, on part one of this one the other night. So I need to read part two, or up to like page 200, I guess, not completely all of part two for our next check-in, but that check-in is not until midweek next week. So that one's not as high a priority as A Mercy. I'm also reading another buddy read for Black History Month, is Mama Day by Gloria and Naylor. I'm buddy reading that with Britta, but it's also the pick for February's, February for Kim at Middle of the Book Marches book club. So be double dipping for that one, buddy reading it with Britta and also talking about it with the folks from Kim's book club at the end of the month. So I read the first third of that book, and I'm just going to read. We've just agreed to read through the end of that book before our next check-in. Again, not until midweek next week, but I will be working on it this weekend. And I believe that's it for the moment. So just wanted to give you the update on what's on the TBR for this weekend, and I will check in with you when I get some reading done. Friends, it's Saturday, and I figured I'd check in because I finished a book, and that is Desperation and Death by Robb. And this, as I said, is a late addition to the Eve Dallas series of books, futuristic police procedural books. And this was a great story. I listened to most of this on audiobook, and I read basically the last 30 or 40 pages in the physical book because I wasn't, I was by myself, and I was like, I need to finish this right away. I wanted to know what happened. So in this book, in this installment, Eve is tasked with trying to find out about and break up a child sex trafficking ring. And it is quite a story. It's a wild ride, and it's super fast paced and really, really good. Like, really thought this was an excellently done story, but it's horrifying. And so if that's something that you are not interested in reading about for whatever reason, harm to children, just nasty, nasty stuff, avoid this particular installment. But I thought it was really well done, and really like a terrible image in your mind of what is possibly happening in the world right now today. So yeah, but really well paced, and the characters act in believable ways and are normal characters that are in most of the Eve Dallas books are in this one, and it was just great. So very much enjoyed this. And I have been, as you can see, I've had new hair, been to have my hair done and colored and cut. So that was fabulous. It's a nice sunny day outside, but it is quite cold. So I had been planning to take a walk, and I may still do that. And so that may be coming here a little bit later, but it's so cold. It's so cold. Anyway, we'll see. And I will show you some scenery if I do get outside. Hey there, I thought I'd do a quick Sunday check-in. As you can see, I'm wearing my Steelers t-shirt in honor of the Super Bowl, getting ready for our annual Super Bowl party. Obviously, Steelers not in it this year, but really not in it this year. But I have to wear my Steelers shirt just to represent anyway, even though they didn't make it to the championship. So the food is just about prepared, and I figured I'd take the moment to talk about what I've been reading. I haven't completed anything else since I checked in about Desperation and Death, but I have been reading in various books over the weekend, and I've read quite a bit. So I've been reading, I've read 2.5 chapters of White Trash, The 400-Year Untold History of Class in America by Nancy Isenberg. This is a buddy read with Rachel, and this is history nonfiction, quite academic. It is a little bit dry, and therefore best probably read in small chunks. I've been taking it sort of a chapter at a time. But I do like the way that it's organized. It is written like chronologically as the country now known as America, United States, is developing. So it starts off prior to the Revolutionary War and then goes up through the early days of the United States after the Revolution. And now we're into post-Civil War, Reconstruction period. And the one thing that I really do like about this book, first of all, it provides a lot of context for other things that I've been reading and have read. So a lot of the chapters were organized around specific U.S. presidents, which dovetails really nicely with my presidential biography reading. But also, the other thing this book does that I really like is it explains the etymology of certain words like carpetbagger and scallywog and cracker. Like all these terms, these derogatory terms for lower class people are being explained in this book. And I think it's really interesting. The other thing that's really interesting is this book is really from the perspective of lower class white people, obviously White Trash being the title. So that's the focus. And because of that, it's really easy to see how money plays the dominant role in almost every decision that's made throughout U.S. history. There is lots of exploration as well, especially in the second part. In the second part of this book, there's a lot of exploration about how poor whites are played off of other minorities, particularly folks who have just been freed from enslavement after the Civil War. But it is, providing quite a bit of context, I think, to other reading that I've been doing about U.S. history. So I appreciate that, even though it is quite dry in places. The other things that I am reading are, I'm reading Mama Day, which is a buddy read with Britta, and also is the pick for Kim at Middle of the Book March's book club, the Blind Eye Book Club. So Mama Day is by Gloria and Naylor. It's the second book by Naylor that I've read. I read Women of Brewster Place a couple of years ago and absolutely loved it. And Mama Day I'm enjoying very much as well. It is the story of titular character Mama Day, Miranda, who with her sister Abigail lives on this small island off the coast of Georgia, like in between Georgia and South Carolina. And they have a granddaughter, Ophelia, and Ophelia is living in New York City but coming back to the island periodically. And so it's the story of this family. And the thing that Gloria and Naylor does so well is write like these amazing characters, and it's very female-centric, very oriented on the women in the story, and I really appreciate that. It's written with a lot of humor, which I also love, and it's just the story of this family, and it's really, really engaging. And it sort of goes back and forth between what Mama Day and her sister Abigail are doing on this island and what Ophelia is doing up in New York City. And it takes place in the 80s, so there's a lot about what it's like to be a woman trying to make it work as a single person in the city, trying to find good employment and dealing with, dating and sexism in the workplace and all that kind of stuff. On top of that, obviously dealing with race issues, so that intersection. Really great storytelling, and very much enjoying that read. Another book I'm reading for Black History Month and another buddy read is A Mercy by Toni Morrison. I'm reading this one with Karen and Patrice and Doris, and I only have like this much left of the book to go. I've read through the first 8 chapters basically, and this is historical fiction. Takes place again before the United States was the United States in the 1600s. We're following the story starts out talking about this man Jacob, who is a small farmer in New England and who is supplementing his income as a trader. And in order for a planter in the southern part of the United States, not yet the United States, but in the South, it's actually just in Maryland, but it's referred to as the South, which is kind of funny to me. In order for that person to pay off some debt that he owes to Jacob, he gives him a young girl, a young slave. And Jacob doesn't really want to take her. He doesn't own any slaves, or so he says. And he's not really interested in that, but something about the young girl makes him agree to take her. So he brings her home to his farm where his wife resides, along with an Indian woman who is also basically enslaved, and a young girl who was found abandoned on a ship. So she lives on the farm as well. So there are all these people these women on this farm, and that's the story that we're following, is we're following the story of these women. And it's so each chapter, the first chapter is told from the perspective of the young slave girl, and it was very, very difficult to read. It's really not clear what's being said. It's written in this very strange style, and her chapters are interspersed with a POV chapter from the different other characters that live on this farm. And with Toni Morrison, I always do find I always feel like there's some aspect of the story that I'm probably missing. There's probably something that I'm just not getting, because I think her writing is really deep and has a lot of symbolism and a lot of meaning, and I just don't feel like I'm probably smart enough to capture all that. But this, in general, the straightforward part of the story, I'm very much enjoying. I really like how the way that the story is told is exploring the relationship between all these women, and how each of the women is sort of enslaved in some way. There's different forms of slavery. There's enslavement that African Americans experienced, and then there's enslavement that other women have, not just women, but other people experienced during this time frame as well. And there were very much only a few people that had power in this world, and everybody else had no power and was just subject to the whims of others. And we really see that playing out in this story. The other thing is, I really just happened, but in the latter half of the story, but there's a lot of cross connection with nonfiction that I read last fall, The Witches by Stacy Schiff. Of course, this is taking place in the same time period as the events in the nonfiction The Witches takes place, where people were being accused of witchcraft, and religion plays such a huge role in these small communities, these isolated communities, and people had a lot of fear about the unknown, and how they dealt with that was like basically accusing their neighbors of doing things, and that comes into the story as well. So there's a lot of themes being tackled in this very short historical fiction. So just a little bit more to go in this one, but very much enjoying it and glad that we picked it up. Let's see, what else? I did read another chapter in Kibogo by Scholastique Mukasonga. That's my buddy read with Sean the Book Maniac. And that Scholastique Mukasonga is a Rwandan author. And this, I had read her book Cockroaches last year and loved it. That was nonfiction memoir by the author. And this is fiction, and it's there's 4 sections, and each section tells a little bit more of this overarching story from a different character's perspective. And it's sort of a legend, I guess. It's that sort of myth, legendy kind of style of telling a story. And again, it's another story that I'm not exactly sure I totally understand what the author's trying to get at. But it's not difficult, and it's an interesting story, so I'm just along for the ride and hoping by the time I get to the end of it, it will all make sense. So that is where I am. I have not yet picked up a BookTube prize book, and I meant to this weekend, but I've got all these other books on the go, and I'm trying to get caught up and get a little bit ahead before the work week starts. But maybe tomorrow I'll have a chance to pick up a BookTube prize book and start that. Like I said, it is Super Bowl Sunday, so in the next hour or so, people will start arriving to enjoy some yummy treats with me, and I will try to remember to take a little video of our spread for all the yummy foods that we'll be eating tonight. So probably not too much reading is going to happen for the rest of the day. We'll see. I'm here to close out the mid-month Book Bash reading vlog. It is Tuesday morning, and I did not get a chance to close this out yesterday. I did do a little bit of reading yesterday. I started a new audiobook, and it is this one, The Burgess Boys by Elizabeth Strout. This is a book that's been on my ancient TBR, and so I wanted to, I've been trying to work one of these in per month to finish those few books up, and so I grabbed the audiobook from my library on this one, and I listened to like the first hour and 15 minutes, which I think took me through page 34, 35, something like that. And I just cannot with the audiobook of this, because this is a story of a family, the Burgess family, obviously, who are from Maine, and the two brothers are living in New York City. One is like a high-powered lawyer, and the other one's sort of a dubber, and the sister still lives back in their small town from Maine. And she calls and says to the lawyer brother, "You've got to come help. Your nephew, her teenage son, has done a terrible thing, like being a dumbass, and you need to come help me get the legal ramifications of that thing straightened out." Well, the older brother is headed off on vacation with his wife, and she's not willing to give up her vacation. So they send the younger brother, who's 50 in the story, and he is also a lawyer, although evidently not a high-powered, really successful one. So they send the sort of dubber brother up to help with this legal issue. The problem that I have is not with the storyline, although I do think it was a little bit slow for the first little bit. But the real problem is the main accents from the narrator. No, just no, like do not. I would rather have no accent tried at all than this lame attempt at a main accent. So I just cannot listen to this audiobook. So I may try to read like the next 15 pages of the text and see if I get on better with it and if I want to continue. And if not, I'm just going to DNF it because that's how we're going to roll this year in 2023. The other thing that I finished yesterday was Mama Day by Gloria Naylor. And that was a book that I was buddy reading with Britta Bowler and is also the pick for Kim at Middle of the Book Marches Blind Eye Book Club for February. And so I don't want to go into it too much detail right this second because I haven't yet done my final check-in with Britta. But I did not like Mama Day as well as I like Brewster Place, which I absolutely loved. I absolutely loved Brewster Place. And I did like Mama Day, but it wasn't like 5-star all the way level for me. It is quite a lot of magical realism or fantastical elements in the story. I did like the story of this family, this community of people living on this island off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, and the history of that. I thought it was really interesting, really great characterization, really interesting story. It did get a little bit out there for me in terms of the fantastical elements, but yeah, good story. And I'm very glad to have read another Gloria Naylor book. So that's it. I will close out this vlog by showing you my little spread that I was keeping track of, my page counts for the day for the weekend. So hold on. Okay, here's my little tracker for Mid-Month Book Bash, and my goal had been to try to read 750 pages, and I did end up reading 660 pages, which I think is pretty good considering it was Super Bowl weekend, and I had a lot going on with that and some other things. So I feel pretty good about my accomplishments. I read in everything except my first BookTube prize book that I wanted to pick up this weekend and did not even pick it up. So everything else I feel very good about, that I at least did some reading in each of those books that I had on the go, and I finished 2 books entirely, Desperation and Death and Mama Day. So that I think is a good outcome for me for Mid-Month Book Bash. I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read, and I'll talk to you later.